Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, where people conform to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and for hitting the like button. If you haven't already, why don't you make this the video that you subscribe to the channel? And please don't forget to hit the like button for the algorithm. And now let's start with the first story, shall we? The first story is called The New Store Manager. This happened some years ago. I had gotten a job working as a stock person loading the shelves for a craft store. The hours were unholy, 3 AM to 9 AM. It took quite a bit of getting used to, and because the hours were evil, the pickings for such shift were understandably slim. So it should be no surprise that the manager was the rotten scrapings at the bottom of a very dilapidated barrel. The store had this training system in-house on a computer. You got an account, read what amounted to slideshow notes on safety, about not setting yourself on fire, and a quick overall cliff notes about OSHA saying not to twist your back while lifting. Now see, that's what the average employee read, and even the slowest reader could zip through in 15 to 20 minutes or so. But that's not what my training manager gave me. She pulled up a training module, then checked that it was accurate and walked away, telling me to read it so I could get to work. The very first line of a massive training module said, "As the new store manager, you must know and understand the laws you must follow." Hang on. So I called over the walkie-talkie. Training manager, I think you gave me the wrong. I gave you the same training module that I gave everyone else. Training manager, I really think you should double check. Stop making excuses and get to it. Let me try to help you envision this monstrosity before me. Imagine a phone book scanned into the computer, divided into over 100 sections. Every section has 20 subsections. Every subsection had between 5 and 20 sub-subsections. Every single sub-subsection was 20 pages long, in size 10 font, single-spaced. So it was round about 4,000 pages. Details involved laws covering all those delightful little things. This included things like discriminatory practices in hiring and managing employees, and all the ways a store manager could get themselves and the business sued by all and sundry, and how to avoid this fate at all costs. Or at least that's how far I managed to read before my malicious compliance ended. There was still a lot left to read. Half an hour in, the training manager kicked me off and had me help shelf, berating me for taking so much time. I again told her that I had the wrong module, and again she told me to shut up and stop making excuses. She then went to the computer and closed my module, clearly without even acknowledging the gigantic screen of text, instead of the neat little slideshow with pictures in big letters for 5-year-olds to read. I tried twice, and she wasn't listening. That was all I owed her. A month into my employment and training, I still had not completed reading the phone book, having been given only 30 minutes each day. Finally, the store manager, the actual store manager, came to see why I was incapable of completing a module that should have only taken me 15 minutes. He thought that I would have to improve my reading skills. Store manager, I can read just fine, but as the new store manager who will be taking over for you, I really must insist on reading the entire module. I'm sorry? The training manager told me to read the store manager training module, and I need actual time to get through it. If I'm not the store manager, then I need to be given the correct module. Did you tell her that she had given you the wrong one? Yes. And I quote, "I gave you the same training module that I gave everyone else. Stop making excuses and get to it." I told her twice and she just wouldn't listen. The store manager went very quiet. He silently took me into the break room, got me on the training computer there, and removed the store manager module from my account and put the regular employee module up. I zoomed through that bad boy in less than 10 minutes and got on with my work. The store manager and training manager disappeared for a long time. Sadly, the training manager did not improve her behavior in the following year of my employment at that company. She remained exactly as toxic, incompetent, and a workplace bully right up until I reported her to the hotline with 6 typed up pages of documentation. The regional manager had to come in and put the fear of God and Satan into her before she got very quiet for my remaining few months of employment before I moved out of state. The next story is called Put on New Gloves. This story happened at my work. We are an assembly line type food place, like Subway, and we get a lot of customers coming down the line some evenings. For some backstory, of course, as we serve food during 2020, we have been drilled about our cleanliness. We change our gloves as often as we possibly can and wash our hands in between glove changes. We actually are still getting the lectures for it and likely will continue to. It was an evening night and an older couple came in. I watched them arrive through the doors, so I was standing and waiting to greet them immediately. But my cheery, "Hi, how are you guys?" was ignored. That's fine though, happens all the time. So I then begin to take their orders. The lady looks at me and the first and only thing out of her mouth was so loudly, shouldn't you change your gloves?" Now it doesn't translate to text well, but the amount of force and attitude literally had me taken aback for a second. It was a bit humiliating to basically be accused of being unsanitary even when I had just changed my gloves, also in front of my manager and other co-workers. But of course the customer is always right, so I turned around to go wash my hands and change gloves while flushed tomato red. I was angry at her rudeness though, so I decided to do her a favor and follow our full protocol. I used plenty of soap, scrubbed for 20 seconds, rinsed under hot water and used paper towels just to turn off the sink. It was an entire ordeal and she had front row seats with a nasty look on her face. Unfortunately for her, during the minute I spent washing my hands and putting on gloves, 2 separate co-workers came to help and finish making her food. I'm sure their gloves were clean, but she doesn't know that and she looked livid. She looks at me, looks at the co-workers, looks at her food, all with pure rage, while I'm trying to hold in the laughter and glee of the rude woman getting screwed over. She didn't even bother mentioning it to the other employees, and then I had the glory of ringing her up and taking her money. I was sure I was going to get a Karen wage fit, but I guess she got knocked down a few pegs, because by the time she got to the register, she just seemed really embarrassed. I understood her outlook, but there's really no reason to speak to food service employees like we are the scum of the earth. Also, maybe just ask if we have fresh gloves, instead of assuming we are all gross. The last story is called C# Expert. This is the story of how I got hired at an old job I had a few years ago. The technical manager, who ultimately became my boss, was a great guy and was the one who embarked on a course of malicious compliance to get what he wanted. It happened like this. The company was small, about 20 people, and run by a CEO who knew the company's industry but didn't know anything about technology. What she knew was that she had a team of 5 developers and 1 technical manager, and that the company's code was written in the programming language called C#. One day, her favorite member of the development team quit, whom she regarded as the foremost expert on C#. To the technical manager, this was an enormous opportunity. He had 4 other developers who knew C#, but what he was missing was an expert in database design and administration. The company processed a huge volume of data, and he knew enough about databases to know theirs were a mess. The same data had to be recorded in multiple places and was always getting out of sync. Operations that should have taken a few seconds would run for minutes, etc. He didn't want to replace the departed employee with another developer. He wanted a database expert. But the CEO wouldn't hear of it. Somehow he got a description of the person he actually wanted into the hands of a recruiter, who found me. I had over 10 years of experience in database development and administration at that point, but had never touched a line of C# code in my life. The technical manager had a skills assessment he was giving to all candidates for the job, which was 100% database questions. There was a huge bold-faced warning at the top, which I found extremely odd. It was stating, "These questions are extremely difficult. It is unlikely you'll be able to answer them all. You may not be able to answer any. Do not feel any pressure to attempt questions you find too difficult, as these results are not related to the position." I was told I had 20 minutes to work on it. Well, I finished it in about 2 to 3 minutes. The questions were all actually very easy. And so I walked back into the office of the technical manager to ask if I was missing something and what this was all about. He gave me the shush gesture and motioned me back into the conference room. Then he explained. His office was adjacent to the CEO's office, so he couldn't talk in there. The warning was something he'd been forced to put on the test. A recruiter, who apparently had initially been just as confused as I was, had called the CEO to ask why they were giving a database assessment for a C# position. He'd had to play it off to the CEO as, well, wouldn't it be good to know if we happen to find a C# developer who is comfortable with databases too? He explained all the backstory described above, and then we talked for about 30 minutes about databases. C# didn't come up. The job sounded really interesting and would be a chance for me to make an enormous positive difference. In the end, he said, "Okay, you are perfect. I'm going to recommend you for the position, but first you have to talk to the CEO. Remember, when you talk to her, you are a C# expert. Got it?" I was worried, but I thought, worst case, I get caught and don't get the job. Best case, I can really help this company. So into the CEO's office I went. After an exchange of pleasantries, she said, So, what would you say is your number one technical strength? I made a thoughtful face and said, well, it's hard to say. I have skills in a lot of different areas, but if I had to pick one, I'd say probably C# programming. Her face lit up. Ah, fantastic, she said. That's exactly what we are looking for. We talked for a few more minutes about salary requirements and start dates. I said I could start in 2 weeks, and in the end, she offered me the job. That night, I stopped on the way home and bought a book about C#. I think it was literally called something like Learn C# in 14 days. By the time I started 2 weeks later, I knew enough C# to do my job. As the technical manager had said, there was an enormous amount of database redesign to do, so the C# programming was maybe 10 to 20% of my time. I was able to get those database jobs down from minutes to seconds, like they should have been, and the CEO was so impressed she never even questioned my background. I continued to learn C# on the job, and no one ever found out I hadn't been a C# expert all along. And now it's your time to shine. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories in today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.